Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
When I tell this story to this day, people do not believe me. When I was a freshman in college, I was going to a private school in Pittsburgh. I was leaving the next year. I was going to a different school. So my friends and I, some of us were leaving, some of us were moving, whatever. We decided we wanted to kind of hit all the different spots in Pittsburgh that we really liked. So we went to like Mount Washington. For those of you who don't know, it's like a really nice lookout over Pittsburgh. And there was a place near our school, and it was called the Fountain of Youth. It was essentially just like a well that people in the town used to go to when it was in use. So we went there. It was nighttime. It wasn't like midnight. It was like 9 or so. It wasn't super late. We went there, and the way that this well was set up, it was like carved. There was a piece carved out of a rock formation, and then you'd walk in and then get water out of the well inside of it. So the people who were like shorter or smaller, they went inside, and like I'm tall, so I wasn't gonna like go in there, but other girls were going inside and just like checking it out and seeing what it looked like. And the rest of us were standing outside, taking pictures, just like messing around, waiting, hanging out, talking. The girls inside, one of them said, "Hey, I can kind of hear like rocks moving around in here. It sounds like there's something else in here." And we were all like, "Oh, okay, well, that's probably an animal, so just like come out." So as she's like leaving and coming out and saying like, "I can hear something in here," the girls who are outside, me specifically, my phone died. Turned off completely. It was at 70-80%. It was not anywhere close to dying. Turned off, died. Other girls' phones started dying. Then we heard a growl. And it did not sound like an animal. It sounded more like a human being trying to mimic what an animal sounds like when they growl. And we found this out later, that the girls inside the cave heard the same exact thing coming from inside the cave. We heard it outside in the woods. We all run and book it to the car. We get back. We're all like, we're done. That's it. Whatever. I'm going to take a shower. I'm changing, and I see in the mirror handprints on my shoulder. Like someone just grabbed it like that and left those prints. I tell everybody, check yourselves, because I just found this on myself. The one girl who was in the well lifts up her shirt. I look. She has 3 scratch marks down her back. I was like, nope, we're done. I started praying. I said, if there's something attached to us, get it away from us. I want no part of that. And that was it.
All right, so I came straight to the car to tell you all this one because I'm on my lunch break and we got 15 minutes. So biggest red flag. If the house or the apartment is cheap, almost too good to be true, it is. It's more than likely 9 times out of 10 haunted. Now, let me tell you why. Let me tell you my story. And a lot of my followers have heard this from the beginning, because I did tell this story when I first made my TikTok. But ever since then, I've had a lot of new followers. I don't know if you guys went that back. Probably not. So let's just get to it. So I was about 16 years old. Sorry if I'm out of breath. This is a very intense story. I was about 16 years old. I was working, going to school, and I had 2 kids. I did apply for my first apartment because I'm like, if I'm going to be responsible, I'm going to go all the way. So I applied at these apartments that I saw that were kind of within budget, Let me tell you how literally a day later, the manager calls me and was like, bring me $100 for a deposit and you're in. You can move in today. Didn't even ask me for the first month's rent. And I didn't think anything of it. I was 17 years old, trying to get out of my mama's house. So I was like, say yes, I'm on my way. No furniture, no nothing. And I went. Gave the lady $100. She handed me over my keys. Didn't even ask me for the first month's rent. Again, let me emphasize on that. And I was like, okay. Started moving my stuff in. Wasn't a lot because it was my first apartment. I really didn't have any help. So, first few days were okay. I invited my friend over. She started staying with me because she was dating my brother at the time. So me and her were very close. And him and her would always come over just to spend time with each other. Well, sorry if I keep doing that. I'm just eating. I'm on lunch. Now, tell me why one morning she comes to my room. I guess she got up early to cook breakfast, and she came to my room and she looked like she had just seen a ghost. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, you have something in your apartment. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, something is in here. You have like a ghost or something. And I'm like, you're tripping. Yeah, okay. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, I was cooking eggs, and when I tried to grab the salt, it literally moved out of my hand. And I'm like, girl, you're tripping. There's probably like oil or something. Like, there's no way that could happen. Anyways, I brushed it under the rug. And like small little things would happen. Like one day we were all watching a movie in the living room, and something hits the back of the wall. Because okay, so this is the living room wall, and there's a couch in front of it. I had a big old picture frame that was cut in 3, so it made one big picture frame. Now when it hit the wall, the only 2 side ones started swaying like back and forth. The middle ones didn't move at all. So it was just like, I looked back and I'm like, okay, that was weird. Mind you, we're all in the living room, nobody's in the kids' room. So I'm just like, maybe something fell, I don't know. Again, my mind was just trying to find logic as to why these little things were happening. So then I started dating somebody, and he would, stay the night every so often. And I remember this one night we were arguing. He stayed the night, and we had our backs faced to each other. So my back was faced towards him, his was faced towards mine. So I'm facing the wall. Mind you, the wall that I'm facing has a big, like, long window. Like the window goes all the way to the floor. So I turn, and as soon as I turn, I see the silhouette of somebody standing there. And I'm just like, I am terrified because I don't want to move, but I don't want to make too much noise because there is literally a man standing there. So I turn around and I'm like, there's somebody right there. So my boyfriend at the time turns around and he's like, oh shit. He's like, go turn on the light. And I'm like, boy, first red flag. I should have known then. But anyways, this ain't about him. Yeah, so he asked me to go turn it on. I'm like, looking at him like, are you stupid? Okay, I'm gonna go turn on. But when I said that, he got up and finally went to go turn on the light. Mind you, we had only been there like maybe 2 months. Curtains brand new. And when he turned on the light, my curtains were moved like if somebody was standing there. They're brand new curtains. So I'm just like, that was weird. Every night before I would go to bed, I would close my closet door. So this is my bed. My bed's right here. Right in front of my bed there was a closet, like a small little walk-in closet. Every night I would close my closet door. Every time in the morning it would be open, and I was just like, maybe the latch is loose. I would always try to make logical explanations for why little things would happen. Never thought anything of it till one day my daughter, she was about 2-3 years old at the time. She woke up in the middle of the night screaming, panicking, and mind you, it's just me and my 2 little ones living there at the time. So I wake up, and in their room they have a tall one window, and it's long too, and it wasn't the greatest of neighborhoods. So I freaked out and I thought somebody was hurting her. I run to the room, and she's in the corner in the dark crying, and she's like, mama. And I'm like, what? She's like, tell the blue lady to get out, she bit me. And I'm like, what? I turn on the lights, nobody's there. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, she had a nightmare. She's like, she bit my finger. I'm looking at her finger. Her finger is red. Like, if somebody bit her or something bit her. So I'm like, maybe it was just a bad dream. Like, again, I put it off. And I had the 2 kids at the time. My daughter, the one that saw the blue lady, or had a dream about the blue lady. And my son, he was a year younger than her. He couldn't talk yet, but every time I would find him, he would be in the closet with the door closed and baby talking. Mind you, he wouldn't talk to nobody. He was a very, very silent kid. I'm trying not to do a part 2, so I'm going to try to do it as fast as I can. If y'all want any details, y'all ask me after this. So I remember one day I was looking for him all over the place, all over the house, because I had the door open because I had made something, I think it burned, and I let all the smoke go out of the house, so I left the door open, and my daughter and my son were sitting down on the couch looking at TV. I went to the restroom and I came out and my son was not there. So I'm like frantically looking for him, cannot find him anywhere, run outside. I'm about to call like the police, like where's my son at? And then I'm looking in their rooms, nothing. Looking in my room, I can't find him anywhere. And I'm like, maybe somebody came in and got him, like I don't know. And so I hear baby talk and I follow the voice and I find him in the closet. All the lights are off in my daughter's room, and there's no closet light. I open the closet door and he's sitting in the closet corner, as if like if somebody was cradling him, and he's just there, just baby talking, like happy. And I'm just like, what is going on, you know? Okay, so then it gets worse. So these little like incidents just keep getting worse and worse. My mom comes over one day and I tell her, you know, some weird things have been happening around the house. Emery keeps saying she's seeing a blue lady. They keep talking about this blue lady. My son's doing some weird things, and she's like, oh, we'll settle this, you know? So my mom goes to my daughter's room, and she's like baby talking with her, because my daughter's 2, 3 at the time. My son was 1, she was 2. And my mom's telling her, like, where's the blue lady at, baby? So my daughter goes in the room and she looks at her bed. Mind you, it's a little toddler bed. It's literally like an inch, 2 inches from the floor. And she's like, hers right there, grandma. Hers right there, pointing at her bed. So my mom, she goes and pretends like she's telling the lady, get out of her room. Get out of the room right now. And my mom says, there, baby, she's gone. She's not gonna bother you anymore. My daughter turns around and she's like, no, grandma, her's still there. And me and my mom said, oh, I'm out. And she's like, well, where? Show me. So my little toddler goes and lifts up her little bed, her little toddler bed, and she's like, hers right there. And me and my mom are looking at each other like, oh my gosh. Okay, anyways. So I'm like, she has quite an imagination. My daughter was a very, very, very social kid. She talked a lot. So I was just like, maybe she's using her imagination. I don't know. So let me fast forward. It's New Year's. I just we go to my boyfriend's parents' house, and we're there. It's like 12, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, and I get this really gut feeling, and I'm telling him all night, let's go. I want to go. And he's just, one more drink, and we'll go. And I'm just like, no, something don't feel right. Like, let's go. And so he says, okay, fine, let's go. It's already 2 o'clock in the morning. So we head home. When we get home, my stuff, like my apartment was broken into. Everything was just flipped over, and just, it was ransacked. And I was just like, I knew that gut feeling was for a reason. So I called the cops, and they come over, and the cop is doing the report, and he's looking at his buddy, because it was 2 of them. He's looking at his buddy. He's like, remember that story that I told you? He's like, it happened here. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what happened here? Me nosy, because I want to know too, what happened here? And then the cop goes, oh shit. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, nah, if I tell you, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So I'm sitting there like, now you gotta tell me, because I'm living here. Like, what happened? And he's like, we're gonna have to do a part 2, because we're a bit...
Okay, perfect, because I have one, and it's actually like a really good story, and it's a story that I honestly don't even think I've told anybody. But when I was 16, I lived literally in the middle of BF nowhere. I was in Texas, and I got a bicycle for my 16th birthday, and I was super excited because that meant I basically had like my freedom. So I would just ride around on my bicycle, and since I was in the middle of nowhere, like, it was just like a bunch of like dirt roads, and you would end up in like the back of people's properties, and like it was like rural, like nobody really cared what you were doing out there. So I realized if I went about like half an hour ride on my bicycle, I would get to the edge of this person's property, and in the back of their property they actually had a graveyard, and it was a really old graveyard. A lot of the tombstones were listed from like really, really late 1800s to like early 1900s, like 1903. Like, they're really, really old, and it was so obvious that nobody kept up with the graveyard. Like, everything was dirty and overgrown. And of course, like, I thought I was like 16 and edgy and cool, so I'd go hang out in the graveyard. But then eventually I started going there maybe like once or twice a week, and I started cleaning things up just because I felt bad about these people who were obviously like forgotten about. And I remember there was these 2 headstones that I was specifically attracted to, and I'm assuming the woman died like in childbirth, or like her and her kid must have gotten ill around the same time. But it was like a woman, and she, from like her birth date to like her death date, was literally around like the same age as I am, you know, like right now. And I was just like, so what's such a shame that she, you know, died so young, and then like her baby's tombstone was like right next to her. Well, I would just go and I would like clean everything up. Well, this one day, I honestly, and I'm not someone who really I believe in the paranormal just because I've seen a couple of things that I can't explain, but I do feel like a lot of paranormal things aren't actually real, and it's just people making shit up. But like, this actually happened, and I Went to the graveyard that day. Up until then, I had never felt anything creepy. I never felt weird. Everything was always really chill. And I was over at their tombstones, like just cleaning everything up, pulling some weeds. And mind you, it was a completely still day. Like, there was no wind. It was the middle of the summer. It's hot outside. There was literally no wind. And I'm sitting there and I'm like cleaning things up, and I get the strongest smell of perfume. Like, I'm talking, it suddenly smelled like I was standing in the middle of like a field of flowers. Like, it was just like super strong. And I felt not like dread. I don't think dread is the right word, but I felt like this overwhelming feeling of like, you need to leave. Like, you need to get out of here. And it was calm. It didn't feel threatening. I just felt like it was almost like audible, like someone told me like, you need to leave. And I literally remember, like, I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, I need to get out of here. And I literally like packed up all my little things. I always have like my little headphones. I didn't put my headphones in. I got on my bike and I pedaled my ass back home so fast. And like, I just remember having the feeling of like, you need to leave and you can't come back. And I left, and literally, like, that was it. Like, I stopped going. I didn't go back there. I never felt threatened by whatever was out there, but I just felt like, you can't go back like this. You need to not come back here. 2 weeks later, it was in the news that a woman who had been jogging along that same road that I rode my bike almost every single day was abducted and killed by somebody, and they never found out who. And to this day, I really feel like whether it was that woman whose headstone I was cleaning or somebody else in that graveyard who maybe just appreciated the fact that I cared about them, gave me that warning to leave and kept that from, you know, happening to me. So that's my story.
We always tell them our ghost stories, so I'm freaking glad I can share that with you today. When I was in 5th grade, we moved to Germany for a year because my stepdad was in the military, so it was just me, my mom, my brother, and my stepdad. So just the 4 of us. My brother is also 5 years older than me, so when I was in 5th grade, he was a sophomore. I know math. Also, we did not live on base. There was this one night where my mom and my stepdad, they were out for like some military event, like a fancy dinner, like a ball or whatever, and my brother and me stayed home, duh. And so my brother had a few friends come over, and they really were into techno at the time. I was also into techno, but they were into hard techno, and that shit would freak me to freak out. I think now I know that it was anxiety because of like the bass like freaked me out so much, but yeah. So when my brother's friends came, they were like listening to hard techno, and I was like, guys, this is freaking me out a little bit. I think I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna go to sleep. So that's what I did. I think that's like around 10 or 11 that I go upstairs, and then they call me down at like midnight or 1, and they're like, hey, was that you watching us from the stairs? And I was like, huh? Because I had literally just woken up. And they're like, yeah, there was someone watching us from the stairs, and it looked like you, but like we couldn't tell because there was like a lot of hair in her face, so like we didn't know, was that you? And since I had already had ghost experiences under my belt at that age, I was like, oh yeah, to not freak myself out and to not freak out my brother, I'm gonna say yes, that was me. Yeah, I was watching you. Sorry I got bored upstairs. The TV shows were lame because cable was whack at the time, okay? And so they're like, oh my god, thank god, because we were so freaked out, ha ha ha. And then they're like leaving, so then my brother's like closing the door behind the last person, and he's like, hey, I know that wasn't you watching us, so you're gonna sleep in my bed tonight. And I was like, how the freak you know that? So basically, I think what was in that house had followed me to the States, because I mean, that house in Germany had so much bad energy. It was freaky as fuck. Like, my mom woke up to some type of entity like laying on top of her, like watching her go to sleep, and it was freaky. So fast forward, I'm now back in the States. I'm in 6th grade. I wanted to go to one middle school. My mom ends up buying another house that was like out of the district, but I like had already started going to this middle school, and because I was moving from the military, my mom was like, I don't want you to go through all these changes again, pobrecita, so my dad was like, why don't you spend half the time with me and half of the time with your mom, so then you can still go to the same middle school, and then we don't have to go through all the changes, plus I can see you, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh my god, yeah, that'd be like so freaking fun. And I think this is too long, so you have to go to this is part 2 to my ghost story. Okay, so I did misspeak a little bit. Okay, so I think for 6th grade, In 7th grade, I stayed with my mom, and then 8th grade, I started splitting it, and then 9th grade, I started spending like Monday through Friday at my dad's house, and then Saturday through Sunday at my mom's house. Yeah. So middle school is like pretty chill. Nothing really happens, but just to explain the dynamic in the household, it's me, my dad, my stepmom, and my stepsister. And my stepsister's like 10 years older than me. At this time, my brother's already like, he's able to drive, so he can stay at my mom's house and whatever. So in high school, I started staying with my dad more, like I just said, and I was in marching band all 4 years of high school. Can you freaking believe that? Take a look at me. Yeah, I bet it's so shocking. And so I would have practices Tuesday through Thursday, and sometimes it would be late. So sometimes I would want to go home because I would want to nap in between. But then some days I would just stay at school from like 7 a.m. until like 9. So weird stuff starts happening around my dad's house where things are starting to go missing. There's like property damage being done, which is like really strange, and lots of tension between me and literally everyone else. For example, my stepmom and my dad, so they had their own bedroom obviously, but they had a key lock to their room, and I think it's because I was living with them, and for some reason they didn't trust me. And guys, I know it sounds like I was like a bad person. No, I was just really sad, and I was forced to do like my own grocery shopping by like 14, and I didn't know what to fucking buy. So sometimes, and like body care stuff, like I don't know, you know, it was a lot of pressure for me. But yeah, their room was like locked with their own key, so like obviously no one could ever get in there. And there was this one time where my stepmom comes home, and she's like turning, so she's going up the stairs, and so my dad and stepmom's room is here, and mine is over here. So when you look up the stairs, like you would be able to see me like walking like this way. So my stepmom comes home, and she's like going up the stairs, and she sees me run from her room to my room and like slam and close the door. And so she goes upstairs, and she's like looking, and she can tell that where her jewelry case is, the door or like whatever the fuck was open. So she was like, she knocked on my door, and she's like, Jocelyn, I don't go in your room. Okay, so she says that she thinks that it's me in my room, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, this is part 3 to my ghost story. So yeah, she thinks that it's me in my room, and so she's just like, yeah, don't take my stuff. And obviously she was trying to like open the door, and the door was locked, and I was like, okay. So that is happening in the background. No one tells me about this until later on. Okay, so next thing you know, I'm like kind of getting in trouble for stuff that I don't even really know is happening. And my stepsister apparently comes home, and there is someone that looks like me and is sitting in the living room, and we had like a wooden coffee table. And so apparently I had a knife or like a pair of scissors in my hands, and I was just like drawing X's like all around the edge of the coffee table. And so apparently my stepsister comes in, and she's just like, hey, like, what are you doing? And apparently I said, oh, I'm mad at your mom, so this is what I'm doing. First of all, I have never done property damage in my whole life, so I would literally never do that. I'm not, and at that time I was not confrontational at all, so there was no fucking way that I would say that. But there's like hair covering my face, so she can't really tell if it's me. But yeah, she's just like, why are you pissed at her? And then apparently I just like ignored her, and I wouldn't look at her, and my hair is covering my face, which I think I already said, and I just kept drawing X's on the table and whatever. And I think I said my marching band schedule, but I don't remember. Tuesday through Thursday was practice, so I was at school from 7 a.m. until like 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then Wednesdays I'd be at school from like 7 a.m. to like 6 or 7 p.m. or something like that. So there would be days like Mondays and Fridays, like I would actually be home for, you know, normal hours. And I remember I was watching TV with my dad in the living room, and I was like, hey dad, what happened to this coffee table? And we had like house cleaners at the time, so I thought like maybe they just like messed with the table and they got scratched or whatever. And he was like, you know what you did to the table? And I was like, no, what are you talking about? And he's like, you did that. And I was like, no, I didn't. He was just like, yeah, Jesse literally said that you were mad at Dinora, and then that's why you did that. And I was like, dad, take 1 second to think about what you just said. Does that even sound like me? And he was like, well, that's what they told me. Now, granted, conspiracy theory, they were plotting against me, But I don't think that they would care that much about me to do that, if that makes sense. I hate to be this bitch. I'm gonna have a part 4 with me saying that it could be conspiracy theory that my stepmom and my stepsister are plotting against me, but I don't think that they care about me that much. So I don't see them actually doing that, TBA. But yeah, so my dad is like knowing all of this information that like apparently I stole my stepmom's jewelry and I ruined the coffee table and I was like doing shit around the house that like literally was not me because I was literally never home. And also I misspoke in the previous video because Fridays were football games, so I literally would be gone from like 7 a.m. until like 10 p.m. So I was literally only home, I was only at my dad's house on Monday nights for like the first 3 months of the school year. So yeah, my dad is finding out all this information and I'm already like really hating my life because I'm a teenager and I'm super sad and depressed. And so the tension starts to get to the point where like I am actively like having arguments with my dad every single day, being like, I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, why am I being made out to be this like terrible person when I literally don't do anything? All I do is stay in my room all day because I don't want to talk to anyone and no one here likes me, so why would I want to do that? And it gets to the point where like I am now getting kicked out of my dad's house for the shit that I have not done, literally at all. My dad is like, why would they make that up? Why would they make that up? And I'm like, I don't know why they would make it up, but it's literally not true. Like, think about my schedule. Jesse says that I'm there on a Wednesday afternoon. I have marching band practice right after school, so that's literally not me. Dinora says that she sees me like running from your guys' room to my room and locking the door on like a Thursday or a Tuesday. I'm not home during those days. And so he's just like, he literally won't believe me. And like, I get it, like I'm a teenager and he probably thinks that I'm just like talking on my ass, but I'm like, no, that's literally not me. Like, why would I lie to you? And he's like, well, why would they lie to me? And I was like, I don't know. I'm like crying in the middle of the fucking road because my dad had like dropped me off at my mom's house being like, you're gonna stay here. And I'm like, I literally did nothing wrong. A few days later, my dad is like driving home and the watch or whatever that my stepmom lost was like so eerily placed smack in the center of the garage. And my dad is like, that is suspicious. And yeah, that's my doppelganger. She has stuck with me since 5th grade. She has not been active for a while, and I know it sounds fucking fake and stupid and blah blah blah. And also like maybe my stepsister, my stepmom were plotting against me that much. I don't think that they cared about me at all to try to make me seem like a bad person. So but yeah, I hope she stays wherever she is, because I don't need any more problems.
Okay, I have one, and I have a few, but I'm going to share one that's a little bit different than some of the things that I've been seeing on this trend so far. And in order to tell you about that, I have to tell you about this. Since I was in my early teens to my mid-20s, I've been having this reoccurring dream, and it was always about this house. How you would get to this house was you would cross this little bridge. It was like with the river underneath it. The house was always embedded into the right side of a hill, and most of the time it was an older white house, but sometimes the house would shift into something more modern. But it didn't matter what iteration of that house you would walk up to, it would always have floor to ceiling bay windows. And when I would go into this house, I would always hang a left through this living room, and the further into the back of the left of the house I would get, the more this house would kind of shift into something else. And the more that it started to shift into something else, like just another house, another like dwelling, like very weird, empty, like 80s plasticky kind of vibes, the more I would feel like I shouldn't be there. And once that feeling was like too strong, I would just walk back up through the regular living room and back up into the foyer. Now in the foyer, there was a staircase that split up at the top, and it wasn't like a grand staircase. It was just a straight up narrow staircase with a landing, and then once you got to the landing, there were 2 little steps up that would lead you into 2 bedrooms. I don't have any idea what's in these bedrooms. I never made it up there. Every time I would get to basically where the landing was at, I would be filled with this feeling of dread, and this feeling that I shouldn't be here. This feeling was tangible. It was thick. There was a lot of pressure, like physical pressure on my chest, and once it would bubble up, usually a voice would be like, go, get out of here. And I would boot it down the stairs every single time. Back down the stairs, we're done. Something in my head said, don't look back. But every single time I would run down the stairs, I could feel something big and thick and like hot following me down the stairs. And I never turned around to see what it was. I was
far too scared to do that. And usually by the time I would get to the bottom of the stairs, my body would wake me up because I'd be so freaked out. Trigger warning for this next little section. If you don't like gore, move a little bit ahead because it's a very quick piece. But one time I went up the set of stairs in my dream, and I didn't notice it on the way up, but there was just this woman's head at the landing, like just on the landing, like neck up. And I'm like, oh my god, that's somebody's head. And the person was still alive, which was the weirdest like thing to me. It was just this woman. She had like regular curly brown hair, nothing like out of the ordinary, except that she was missing her whole entire body. But she saw me see her, and when she saw me see her, the look on my face must have been the funniest thing she'd ever seen, because she just started shriek laughing at me. Like my shock, my fear was like a joyful thing to her. And that dream had me like thinking about it for weeks. And I just was like, I have to tell somebody about it at this point. I don't know what to do. So, like I'm having these dreams all the time. So my mom and I are driving home one day from our campsite, and I decided to tell her what I just described. And I could see her kind of start to white knuckle the steering wheel, and I could see her breathing start to change. And eventually she was like, that's enough. That is enough. Like she wouldn't look at me. A, she was like driving, but B, I don't think she was freaked out enough. She didn't want to look at me. And I was like, what? Like, I'm just sharing my dream. She's like, that's enough. Like, I don't care. I'm freaked out right now. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, I've had that same dream about that same house since I was 15 years old. She goes, I've never seen the woman you've described, but going into the left side of the house and it being a whole other house, going up the stairs, all this stuff, the bay windows, all of it, I have dreamt about this house since I was 16 years old. The fact that you had to cross the river to get to it, I've dreamt this all. And she and I just kind of like sat there in silence. Like, it's still like a very like, wow, a very jarring like thing to think about, but we didn't know what to do. So that I had to tell you this. My mom purchased a bungalow, her first time buying a home. She bought it off of a coworker whose parents had passed. From my understanding, one had passed in hospital and one had passed in a long-term care facility. And so when we moved in, like, we were unhappy because we were a little bit further from our friends, but my mom loves this house. She still lives there. Some things to know is that the back of the house, there are 2 bedrooms that face out there. My mom's and my brother's, and my mom has these 2 giant windows. They're about 8-9 feet off the ground. Like, I'm 5'5", and I have to like reach up to get to the bottom of the windowsill. And the other thing you need to know is that there's a room that joins all of the bedrooms together. It's this tiny little like foyer area, but to the back of the house is my brother's room, then my mom's room, then the bathroom, and then my room, and then this little linen closet was like to the left of my room. And one night I'm having a dream, and it's pretty like normal in comparison to like the reoccurring dreams. So not really thinking, can't really remember much about what was happening, but it swirled and shifted into me still being in a dream, but being in the room that I was physically sleeping in at the time, like my bedroom. And I remember waking up in my dream to the room that I was in being pitch black, but the hallway, like that foyer, the connecting room, the light was on to that. So in my dream I was like, oh, let me go turn that off and I'll go back to bed. When I get into that connecting room, something inside my head goes, open the linen closet. And I do, no hesitation. I open it up, and standing in this linen closet that is too small for a person to physically be in is this woman. And she is wearing this like beige jacket, and I remember her lapels being like so big, it was like trench coat style, that like light khaki beige that a trench coat is. And she is soaking wet, and she's got shaggy hair that's to her like chin / like just top of her shoulders. And she sees me see her, just like that lady at the top of the stairs. And when she sees me see her, she looks at me like this, and then she goes, and I scared myself awake with that. Like, that was enough. And it was very disorienting to wake up in a room that you just like seconds ago in your dream had physically left. Like, it was so weird. But I got up, left the room, and as I'm leaving the room, my mom is leaving her bedroom, and she's like, what are you doing up? It's like 2, 3 in the morning. And I'm like, I just had a really bad dream. She goes, me too. And I was like, did the dog sleep with you tonight? And she goes, no, was she not with you? We had this little Jack Russell Shih Tzu mix named Annie, and she would always sleep in somebody's bed. She had free reign to go around the house. She could go up and down our basement stairs. She usually goes down to the basement, or did go down to the basement to do things she's not supposed to do. But no problem getting up and down the stairs. Now, my mom and I are like, where is she then? So we go and try and find her. She's not in the living room. So we go to the kitchen, and the kitchen, at the back of it, there's a set of stairs that lead down to our basement, and we can hear growling when we get to the kitchen. And we're like, what the hell? Like, we have, again, this yappy little Shih Tzu Jack Russell mix. It's more of that, like, yip, 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 like that kind of a dog than, well, she was loud, and a barker, but she was not a growler. So to hear her have this guttural growl at the base of the stairs was crazy. She was at the bottom of the stairs. All of the lights in the basement were on, and they were not on when both of us went to bed. There's nobody else in the house. And the dog would not come up the stairs. We could not get her to come up, and she was just stuck growling. And it took us probably about 5 minutes to get her up there. My mom and I are freaked at this point, and I tell her what and who I dreamt about, and she goes, again, shut up, stop, like, please stop, I can't, like. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, that same woman, I could see her from her chest up, walked the entirety of my windows in the back room. The windows that I told you, if I wanted to reach from the ground, I had to, like, there was physically no way anybody could be walking across at that height unless they were 11 feet tall. Like, there's no way. And I described what she looked like, and I just watched my mom's face go, like, pale. She goes, she was wearing the fucking jacket. She was wearing that jacket for me too. That's exactly what she looked like. We had the same dream at the same time about the same person, and woke up from that dream at the same time because we saw this person in places that they physically could not fit into in the real world. I have no explanation for it. My mom and I talk about it all the time, and we can still not figure out what went down for this, to all of these puzzle pieces to, like, come together like this.
She's not sleeping lately. I don't know what's going on. She won't go in her room. She won't lay down. Whatever you need to do to get her to sleep, just try. I said, all right, we'll figure it out. So it was late, and there was no sign of her wanting to go in her room. I said, let's go lay down in your room. You know, it was 11. I think 11:30. So let's go lay down in your room. She goes, no. I said, why? And she goes, the baby's crying. And I said, I have no idea. You know, I didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe it was like a TV show she was talking about. And I said, no, let's go lay down in your room. So we went in her room, and she goes, the baby's crying. And so at this point, I'm like, what baby? What baby? And she pointed up to the ceiling, at the corner of the ceiling, and she said, right there. He's crying. He's sad. She said, I don't want him to cry. And I was like, I am freaked out. So, first thing that happened. And I said, okay, let's leave. Let's go to your mom's room. So we went to her mom's room. And she said, the tall man's in here. And I, full body goosebumps. I said, what tall man? Where? And she pointed to her closet, and she goes, he lives there. Tall man. And I said, we're not staying in here. We're going into the living room. So we sat down in the living room, and there's a couch. Behind me is a big window. So I think I had the news on. I don't know what I was watching. She's sitting there, and she stood up and looked behind me and screamed. She screamed, and I was so, like, I thought someone was outside. So I looked. I swear to God, I saw the tallest shadow. It was like a shadow figure, tall. And it looked like it just swooped past the window. And it looked like he was wearing a wide-brimmed hat. And I was so freaked out. And she said, Hat Man, as soon as it happened. Hat Man, Hat Man, Hat. And my instinct is to run outside, but I went outside, so I didn't run outside. And so I honestly think I just stayed in the kitchen. I was like in the kitchen. And I was like, your mom's gonna be home soon. I'm just gonna stay here, okay? And the mom got home and I was like, yeah, she's not sleeping. I gotta go. I was so scared. So scared. I never went back. They never asked me to come back. I never went back, and they moved shortly after. We lost contact, so I don't know how they're doing.
So when I was 19, I moved into this house after a breakup, and I found this room on Facebook Marketplace. This girl was selling her room or whatever, subleasing it, and it was, I think, $250 a month, and I was like, yeah, let's go. So I moved into this place, and it is a very old home. It was made out of local stone, and it was on this block that all the houses were made out of local stone, and if they weren't made out of local stone, they would not still be standing. I'll just say that. They're very old. So this house had been converted into separate apartments, and I was living in a room that you had to walk through a bathroom to get to, and this room is also connected to another bedroom, but we just put like furniture in front of it, so it kind of felt like a bedroom. So that's where I was staying. And the first night that I was sleeping there, I was woken up out of a dream, don't know what I was dreaming about, and I saw this woman just like hovering over me, looking at me. And I looked at her for a few seconds, and when she realized I was looking at her, I just saw her eyes get really wide, and she looked nervous, and she disappeared. And I've never really given that a lot of credit because I was waking up out of a dream. You know, sometimes you just see things. I don't know. But then the next day when I was leaving to go do something else, you know, I was opening my door, going through the bathroom to get out of the house. I swore that I saw someone like crouched in the corner of the shower. And I thought that was weird. But because the night before and how I was like, that was probably just a dream. I'm probably just paranoid right now. I'm not going to give it any credit. So time goes on, right? And I get a cat. Love the little thing. She's precious. And it gets to a point where, you know, I'm 19. I'm a full-time college student. Her food was more expensive than mine, and I couldn't afford to keep her anymore. So one of my friends took her, and I noticed as soon as she was gone that things started to get a little hairy. Like from that day forward till I moved out, every single day something happened. Didn't matter if it was daytime, nighttime, or anything. But that little figure that I had seen crouched in the shower was a little boy. And he was very upset that my cat was not there anymore. So what did he do? He terrorized me. Like, it got to the point where I had to rearrange my room so when I would wake up and roll over in the middle of the night, I wouldn't see him because he would stand in the corner where I had my cat's stuff as if like protesting that she was gone. And that was every single night from that point on. During the day, I would have hangers and clothes fly out of my closet. Did not matter. Door would open, closet and clothes would just fall out. And it became a normal thing, you know, like I would see him and I wouldn't think twice about it because I didn't want to engage. I didn't want to encourage it. So what I would do is I wouldn't say anything. If he was really scaring me, I'd go to someone else's house. I just dip out because, you know, like child spirits, you don't really know if it's a real child or not. I think this was a real child because he was just throwing tantrums and taking it all out on me. The scariest thing that ever happened with him, though, was I was doing laundry one day. I guess my cat had probably been gone for a couple months now, and I'd become adjusted to seeing him. It wasn't anything new. And I was folding my laundry on my bed, and I watched him crawl out of my closet, look at me, and crawl underneath my bed. It actually makes me sick to my stomach
even thinking about it because I don't know if you've seen any scary movie. It was horrifying. So yeah, I dipped. I didn't come back for like 2 days because that was horrifying. And before I left though, I did get on my hands and knees and look under the bed to see if he was there. One of the bravest moments of my life, he wasn't. And at that point, I was already done. You know, I didn't care that I didn't see him. I was done. So, I mean, my laundry was clean. It didn't matter. I dipped. And from that point on, it never got that bad again, but he was almost always in the shower when I would be leaving. And the way that our bathroom was set up, like the mirror faced the shower, and there would be times where like I would be getting ready. I'm crying. I would be getting ready and I would see his little stinking head pop up in the mirror. And I had to start sleeping with a face mask because I would roll over in the middle of the night and he would either be in the corner of my cat's stuff or he would be at the end of my bed or he'd be in another corner. Like it was something straight out of Insidious. And I'd say that's one of the worst ghost stories I have at that house, definitely, because I never saw that woman again. There was one figure I kept seeing in the kitchen, but I never saw their face. They only stood with their back to me. So, you know, I think our timelines were just crossing or something, but no one else in the house that lived there ever had any encounters that I know of. And yeah, so that's how I was terrorized by.
So a few months ago now, it was a Friday night and I was fast asleep. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning and I hear the door code start being entered. It's this beeping noise. So I roll over and I say to my husband, Chris, I think someone's trying to break into the house. He runs down the hallway, looks over the stairs at the front door, and he calls out, there's no one there. At that point, we hear the front door go keypad deactivated, which means that the code has been entered incorrectly too many times. So he comes back to the bedroom and we look on the app that tracks everything that's happened on the front door. And you can clearly see that someone has entered the code incorrectly 3 times, which shuts it down. So I say, okay, quickly, let's have a look at the security cameras. And we have one of those like Ring doorbells. We get it open. No one has been in our front yard. The sensor lights didn't come on. There was no one there, but someone has definitely tried to enter our keypad incorrectly 3 times and has shut the front door down. Anyway, we try not to think about it too much, get on with our day the next day. You know, these things happen. Then the next night, Saturday night, around the same time, I'm talking about 1 o'clock in the morning, I am fast asleep and I hear my husband's phone ringing on speaker. And I roll over and I say, Chris, who on earth are you calling? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. And he gets up his phone. He goes, Annie, I'm not calling anyone. Like, the screen's dead. It was black. He couldn't do anything to it, but it was calling someone on speaker. And it rings and it rings and it eventually gets this person's voicemail. And it's, you know, the standard, can't come to the phone right now, leave a message, I'll get back to you. But I'd never heard this person's name before. So I said to my husband, Chris, like, who was that? Like, I've never heard, who is it? And he goes, that's my old boss.
One incident in particular, and all the incidents leading up to it, that really just have like kind of stuck in my brain. So I guess I'll just share that with you. So it was like 6 years ago, right before and right after my daughter was born. Her dad was not in a good place mentally, and weird things started happening around our house. And it would start with like just knocking, and we had this motion light that we kept on our shelf in our closet, and it would like communicate with us through that. And it carried over to his mom's house, who has since passed, but it was just so weird. She used to watch preaching on the TV like Andrew Womack and Joel Osteen and them, and there was one sermon that Andrew was preaching in particular, and I had picked something up to go throw it away in their kitchen that day. I watch my feet when I walk because I trip over everything. And so, you know, I'm being extra cautious looking at the ground when I'm walking to the trash can. And I get there and I throw what I had in my hand away. And when I turned around, I'm telling you, there was thousands of just maggots just manifested in the middle of the floor. And like, maggots have to have a food source. And his mom was really good about bleaching the floors, keeping them clean and all that. So those maggots literally appeared out of thin air. I watched it with my own eyes. Same thing happened at our house a couple days later. I was sitting in my living room. I was petting my cat who was sitting on the floor, and then the second time I looked down, there's just maggots by my feet, and they came from absolutely nowhere. It's like they just like came up out of the floor. It was fucking weird. And then things started to get worse in the house too. Like a couple days before the main event, I came home from the grocery store, and when I got to the top of our staircase, the motion light that was in our closet, our bedroom lit up. It was night, so I could see that the bedroom lit up. And as soon as that happened, you heard something fly across the room and hit the ground. Like, it was so loud, and it scared the shit out of me. But then I walk back there, there's nothing on the floor. And I just started, like, smelling weird smells, like, you know, demonic shit. And yeah, it just got really bad. And then came the night that everything happened. Everything that really fucked me up anyway. And I was laying in bed, and my daughter had just been born at that point. So it was her dad, her, and me on the outside. And she just kind of fell asleep eating. I was going to get her up and move her, whatever. But I just had this really heavy, dark feeling overcome me all of a sudden. It was so weird. I felt like something was breathing down my neck, and my heart started racing. And next thing I know, I had, like, I guess you could say it was sleep paralysis, but I don't know. It didn't really feel like that. I was conscious when this happened, but my eyes just, like, blacked. Like, I couldn't see anything, and I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't talk, you know, typical sleep paralysis things. But I was able to, like, cut my eyes towards our closet, and I saw this thing standing in there. And how Freddy Krueger's face is scarred from being burnt and stuff is exactly what this thing looked like. And it had a snake tongue and bright red eyes, and it was saying stuff to me, but it was not in English, it was in Latin, and I did not understand it. But it felt like it was trying to kill me. It was really fucking weird. I don't know what I did to snap myself out of that, but eventually it all just like, and then it was done. Like, it just stopped happening. And after that, he went fucking postal. This dude was off his fucking rocker, my daughter's dad. He just went absolutely fucking nuts. He was being awful to me. He was just being awful in general. Like, it was like he was fucking possessed. And the crazy part is, all that stopped once I left that situation. But to this day, I still have, like, nightmares about what I saw. And it was just really, really fucked.
The house that I live in right now is haunted. So starting off strong, before I even moved in there, I was hearing voices whenever I would come over and see my then boyfriend, my now husband. I would hear men's voices talking, and I always just played it off like I was crazy. But when I moved in, like, I don't know, one of the first few weeks that I lived there, I was in my room with my husband. The only thing that was on was the TV because we were watching a movie. I had leaned off the end of the bed. So we were leaned off the end of the bed. There was windows on this side, a mirror on this side. I leaned off the end of the bed to grab a blanket or something. I don't know. Looked in the mirror. There was a man standing beside the window. It was like a dark figure, but I could tell it was a man. And it freaked me out so much that I fell off the bed. My husband was like, "What are you doing?" I told him. He was like, "You're crazy." Moving forward, at the time, my son was 4. He came into my room one day, and told me it was nighttime, but it wasn't time for his bedtime. He came to me, he said, "I need you to tell that man to leave my closet." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Tell the man to get out of my closet." So I run in there. There's nobody in his closet. He swore up and down that from the moment that we moved in, that a redheaded man was staring at him in his closet when he would go to sleep. And I was like, "Why have you not told mommy before?" And he said, "Well, he doesn't scare me." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So my stepdaughter has seen things multiple times in her room. She has seen hands coming out of her closet or people standing in her closet and staring at her, so she now requires her closet to be shut and stuff to be in front of it if she's not using it. She watched her dad walk in from the hallway into her room at the end of her bed, and she said that he didn't have a face and he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. My husband doesn't wear Hawaiian shirts. And he disappeared from his feet up, but he just stared at her for like a minute or two. My son has had a couple instances where he was downstairs one day and he was, I don't know, just sitting there eating a bag of chips, and somebody came up behind him and said his name, and it scared him so bad that he came running upstairs to me. He has heard people talking to him while he's in the shower upstairs. We had our sump pump like messed up or whatever. The pipe had broken, so my husband had fixed it. We had a little camera. He put a camera facing it. The camera was supposed to notify us of any movement or sound or whatever like that, just so if it messed up again, it would tell us, because it flooded our basement the first time. And 2 days after we put it in, I got a notification from the camera that there was sound, and it was two women talking. When we got there, there was nobody in their house. We have several videos of people talking on that camera. And sometimes it's two women and sometimes it's just a man. We have now taken the camera out of the basement. There was one day I was home by myself. It was the middle of the day. I walked downstairs. My downstairs is like a big square, so it's like kitchen, little family room thing, and like a little hallway, but it's like one big square. As I walked into the kitchen, I saw a little boy running into the other room. I ran to catch him. There was nobody there, but he like looked me dead in my face and like took off running. There has been one time me and my husband were on vacation. My sister was in charge of going over and feeding my cat and dog. We were only gone for like a weekend. All the lights were off in the house, and she showed up, and she was too scared to go inside because lights had been turned on in my basement. So I come home all the time, and my basement door will be wide open. There was one time that my husband used to go out of town to work. He would be like an hour away, and he would take the kids with him because he would go work with a buddy who had kids, and they would all kind of hang out together. So I'd be at home by myself, and at night I would hear people walking up and down the hallway. And the first time I was like, I'm losing it. But then my cat and my dog started like getting it. My dog would growl at the door, and my cat would like stand at the edge of the bed like on attack mode. There was one night that my bedroom door was opening and closing by itself. It wasn't slamming or anything, it was just really gently opening and really gently closing. But that went on for like 5 or 10 minutes one night, and I was like, I nudged my husband and I was like, are you seeing this? And he was like, yeah, but he fully ignores this stuff. There was and just for clarification, me and my husband work in a funeral home, so my husband's worked in a funeral home for years. But I fully believe that he takes stuff home with him all the time. There's just been like a lot of noises. You'll hear people talking when you're home by yourself. You'll hear walking. Like I've been downstairs and I can hear walking upstairs, and there's nobody at home with me. My husband has heard things a couple times. He mostly just like lets it roll off his shoulder. He doesn't really care about it too much. But there was one time, it wasn't our house, but it was my husband. He told me the story that he used to work at a funeral home, and the electricity kept going off, and he would have to go and reset the breaker. And he said that he came back to where he was at, and there was something in the floor, pile of, and it had the face of it in it. So that kind of always has freaked him out, but that happened like way before me and him got together. Yeah, just creepy little things, a lot of walking, a lot of whispering or talking. Like I said, I've only really ever had the instance of seeing somebody one time, and that was about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, super haunted.